Welcome to the 700 Club. A new report from Amnesty International labels Israel an apartheid state that oppresses Palestinians. Israelis are denouncing the false charges and claiming the report questions the right of the Jewish state to exist.
Israel's foreign minister says Amnesty is propagating the same lies spread by terrorist organizations seeking to destroy that country. Chris Mitchell has the details.
Israel is rejecting what it calls false allegations in the Amnesty report.
Instead of seeking the truth, Amnesty echoes the same lies shared by terrorist organizations. 5 minutes of serious examination would be enough to know that the so-called facts in the report published by Amnesty this week are delusional and disconnected from reality.
Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid charging that Amnesty doesn't call Syria, Iran, or other corrupt and murderous regimes apartheid states.
I hate to use the argument that if Israel wasn't a Jewish state, no one at Amnesty would dare make such a claim against it. But in this case, there's simply no other explanation.
The report is entitled Israel's Apartheid Against Palestinians, Cruel System of Domination and Crime Against Humanity. Amnesty's executive summary says Israel has established and maintained an institutionalized regime of oppression and domination of the Palestinian population for the benefit of Jewish Israelis, wherever it has exercised control over Palestinian lives since 1948. A Wall Street Journal editorial calls it, quote, a libel that distorts history. Israel was founded in the wake of the Holocaust with broad international support. The report is a denunciation of the very existence of Israel as a refuge for the Jewish people. Amnesty International says it's using the international definition of apartheid. But apartheid typically refers to the system of racial separation that gave white superiority over blacks in South Africa until the early 1990s. Israeli attorney Ann Hertzberg from the NGO Monitor says the report is aimed at questioning the legitimacy of Israel's existence.
The charge is powerful because it is an easy way to essentialize and exploit anti-Semitic tropes to transform the conflict into from one of disputed land and Arab rejection of Jewish presence in the Middle East to one of Jewish racism.
Israeli attorney David Benjamin grew up in South Africa. He says there's no comparison.
I was certainly a witness to the iniquities of that terrible system. And let me be absolutely clear, I've been living in Israel for the last 30-odd years, and there is absolutely nothing in common between the system of apartheid that applied in the old South Africa and the current situation in Israel.
It's quite easy to throw around labels, and you can use the label apartheid as a smear against the modern state of Israel. But here's the reality. Arabs get elected to the Knesset. The very report we're talking about talks about Knesset members and how somehow they're discriminated against by the Israeli government. Well, they're part of the government. That same block of Arab Knesset members is the reason Benjamin Netanyahu is no longer prime minister. They joined the ruling coalition. So if that is somehow apartheid, you get to be part of the ruling coalition. I just don't get it. If you want to look at an apartheid state, look at the Palestinian Authority. They're the worst enemy of the Palestinian people, and they routinely discriminate against Jews. Here's a prime example. If you're a Palestinian and you sell land to a Jewish person, you are subject to execution. This isn't some vigilante thing. You go to court and they sentence you to death. That's the regime in the Palestinian Authority, with a president who is 18 years into his 4-year term. He is yet to call elections. Why isn't Amnesty International pointing a light at that, or pointing a light at Hamas and what Hamas does with international aid and how it diverts it into weapons and tunnels to the detriment of the people living in Gaza? These are the things that should be explored. This kind of libel against Israel should not ever be accepted by the international community.